Also request the second panelist.
So we are about to start our second session. So everybody please settle down. So our second panel session will discuss the importance of gender parity and sustainable business outcomes and their close connections to conscious leadership. The session will be chaired by Dr. Soma Arora. I would request Dr. Soma Arora to please take the chair. Our distinguished panelists are Ms. Anuradha Sharma, founder and CEO of Fulki Communications and Vice President at DMA. Ms. Sharma is member of National HRD Network, Delhi NCR Managing Council and holds certification in active and integrated learning. Passionate about social causes, she conducts pro bono workshops and create public awareness campaigns. We welcome you, ma'am. Our next panelist is Dr. Geetanjali Batra, Associate Professor at Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management and Entrepreneurship, JNU. She holds a PhD from Delhi School of Economics, Delhi University, with expertise spanning organization behavior, corporate social responsibility, and human resource management. She has garnered recognition through awards and accolades for her research contributions, notably in the stakeholders-driven corporate reporting frameworks. She has a prolific publication in esteemed journals. We welcome you, ma'am. Our next panelist is Mr. C.S. Deepak Jain, sir, Chairman DMA ESG Committee with over 28 years of experience, has excelled as a corporate secretary, serving as VP and CSS United Limited. We welcome you, sir.
Our next panelist is Dr. Soma Arora, Professor, School of Leadership and Management at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies. Dr. Arora has an administration career in teaching at several AA, CSB accredited business schools in India, abroad such as IMD, IIFT, MDI in India. For more than 15 years, internationally, she is a part of Coventry University of Wollongong in Dubai, and amongst others. Her recent area of expertise is business analytics, is especially sought after in executive training programs, PDGS, done in collaboration with UT Austin, USA. Our next panelist is Vikas Tiwari, Director, Legal and Company Secretary, Make My Trade. Proficient in drafting and negotiating commercial agreement, Mr. Tiwari also liaises effectively with government departments and regulatory authorities. His exceptional leadership management skills ensure strong business relations with statutory auditors, legal counsels, and external agencies. We request all the panelists to be present and start the session. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible to everybody?
One more request is there. The session timing is only for 25 minutes, so please thank you so much.
So thank you, compares for the day, but I think what I will start with is a warm welcome to all the senior dignitaries who are sitting on both sides of me, and a very warm welcome to all the students. I would like to start this session with the students first, because I think they're the biggest stakeholders in today's conference, and I have come from academia, like, sown and born and grown in academia. So I feel that students are my biggest stakeholders, and this particular session I would like to address my students in a different manner, because today's perspective for my session is HR. We are talking about gender sensitization, we are talking about women, we are talking about DEI. The previous session, as you all witnessed, was in the area of financial reporting, and they were talking about sustainability reporting. So that was a different perspective, and we all saw how people spoke about these perspectives in great detail. In this, we will talk about how we can address higher education institutions as well, integrating your student mode into sustainability. So that will be my pitch for this particular session. Of course, because I've got senior people like Dr. Geetanjali, who is also from academia, and she knows students in and out. And on my left, I've got Ms. Anuradha, and she's running an organization which is nurtured in branding and communication. We will pass the baton first to Ms. Anuradha because she has got an emergent need to leave. Thereafter, I will start with how we brief this session and how we take it forward. I think in the interest of her requirement, Ms. Anuradha first.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shoma. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. As I'd already shared in the morning, it's a wonderful forum. I'm learning so much. I don't think I need to stress the importance of diversity, gender balance, inclusion and equity in any organization. These are critical components to creating a great place to work and to building respect and well-being in the organization. I think I would like to start with sharing my own experiences. You set the context so beautifully, and I was wondering if you knew what I'm going to be talking about. I want to say that I worked for several years, or maybe more years than many of your age, and over the years I've been so blessed because I've had this personal board of directors, advisors, mentors and coaches who have guided me over the years and helped me to, empowered me, helped me to grow, develop and nurtured me in different ways. And many people used to ask me, when they asked me to speak on different forums, they used to ask me, what are the challenges you faced as a woman? What is the bias? And I used to, sometimes I used to feel embarrassed because, I didn't really face any challenges. From an early age, I was always supported by my family, and I was never made to feel that I'm any different from my brothers or my male colleagues. I was so lucky to have leaders, family, parents, my sister, who were my role models and who enabled me to be like this. And just how they coached and mentored me so that I didn't feel any difference. I treat my own personal board of directors and my I will share with you three role models who have helped me to grow. And I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a woman entrepreneur, and I've led this organization for 14 years. And I've acted as a mentor and coach for my own team members. And in my organization, we've always had over 50% of women unconsciously, not consciously, unconsciously. It's been a very, very diverse team. We've got people, one person was a car mechanic when he started out. One worked in a garment agency, stitching on buttons. Another was a star tennis player. But we've all come together to do great things over here. So let me just refer to my notes. So there are three role models who I have drawn inspiration from. The first person is Anil Sachdev, and he believes in inspired leadership, and he runs a school of inspired leadership. He was he has been instrumental in me actually setting up this organization and giving me the courage and the power to resilience, to actually build the confidence, to overcome challenges and to open new doors when others closed. So he actually helped me to believe in myself. I believe these life lessons which I'm sharing with you, I'm hoping that I'll be able to pay forward to all the people here, the youngsters here, so that they can also gather some wisdom from the people who have made a difference in my life. I believe that life is going to throw you a curveball at some time or the other. It comes out of the blue, and it's up to you how you're going to bat this ball out of the stadium for a sixer. Just like when we were hit by the pandemic 3 years ago, some people shut shop, and though we have a small organization, we decided to transform ourselves and created Fulki 2.0 and came up with different ideas and looked at ways to make a difference in society, in the community by spreading the knowledge about COVID and how to prevent it and so on, so that we could make a difference. We didn't buckle and we came through, and we continue to now look at ways to transform and become Fulki 3.0. Another person is Sujata Keshavan. She's a very well-known graphic designer and the founder and CEO of Ray and Keshavan Design. She was the first woman graphic designer to go to Yale University many years ago in 1980 sometime, and came back to India to set up Ray and Keshavan. Not only did she teach me the nuances of design, but she also taught me how to define my narrative and take control of my story, embrace diversity. Showcasing your unique skills makes you shine and stand out is something that she taught me. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, but if you believe in yourself, you can shine. The third person I'd like to speak about who's had a profound influence on my life is my sister, Anjali Raina. She's Global Director in Harvard Business School. And she taught me that I don't need to be a superwoman. I'm able to do all these things. You know, I'm running an organization, I'm a coach and mentor to lots of people. I have my own hobbies. I am part of DME, I'm part of National HRD Network. And she told me that if I build a personal and professional network in whom I trust, they can support me in wearing these many hats. And I can be a superwoman. I don't need to give up anything. I hope these three life lessons are something which will inspire you as well. I feel I've done my little bit today. And thank you for giving me this.
Thank you so much, Anuradha ma'am. I think that last bit was very interesting, that if we all kind of have faith in the people we are working with, they will support us when we need help, or like when we are like feeling the need. I think that is a very big takeaway from Anuradha ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am. And I think she's got an emergency, so she has to leave. But
Yes,
we'll continue.
my apologies for leaving.
No, ma'am, no problem. So we are there with the rest of the panel, ma'am. We continue as decided. Okay. So coming to a little thought on business schools, because this is hosted by a business school, right? It's Atal Bihari Vajpayee's Business School of Management from JNU. So a little thought on what a business school is and how a business school should look at this ESG as a concept. Okay, see, there are two things in life. One is a business school and the other is a university. So university has got different goals, university has got a different kind of a setup, they have got different bandwidth. And a business school has got different why, because it's a business school and it's supposed to run on business. So when I started my career in a business school, it was called just the business school, and we were teaching people how to make money and how to get loads of profit, whether it was finance, whether it was HR, whether it was marketing. And the bottom line is that it should be profitable. And that's what we taught our students. That's entirely from the beginning, the conception till the end. Slowly, over a period of time, that means 10 years into our journey as a pure business school, we changed the thought process and we started seeing a lot of growth in what was called management schools and management studies, in quotes, management studies. What was this? This was basically the university setup promoting their own schools as schools of management. So schools of management become a little more diversified than pure business school thought, which is just looking at a bottom line or a profit. Now what I see is most of the universities are promoting a standard concept of school of leadership and management. So now the thought has moved from, say, pure bottom line to a kind of a HR oriented bottom line to a school of leadership. So I started asking this question to myself, that are we now not teaching bottom line concepts, or are we not teaching profitability to students? Why have we suddenly moved towards school of leadership? So today also when I sit in front of you, I'm sitting as a professor from School of Leadership and Management. So if School of Leadership and Management is my school, then am I a business school anymore, or am I doing something which is different from School of Business? So what is it that I'm training, or what is it that I'm teaching my students? Same question I ask to all the students sitting over here from Atal Bihari School of Business as well. You have also enrolled with a certain perspective where you'll get placed in big organizations, in corporates, where you'll make a lot of money, because that's why you have enrolled in a business school. Otherwise, you could have gone to psychology, you could have gone to learning literature, or you could have gone to some other department in the university, which is teaching some great stuff, right? So I feel your understanding of this topic has to be very much linked to the conscious leadership concept first, before we trickle down to ESG, or before we trickle down to understanding how sustainability matters. I perfectly understand and agree with our finance colleagues who talk about sustainability reporting, they talk about methods, they talk about the mandate, the agenda. But what matters first is the leadership at the top supporting ESG in what manner? This is the big question. Because ultimately the thought has to come from the leadership. So if I have got a school of leadership and I teach you conscious leadership, now what is conscious leadership? So once again, that transition. We started with transactional leadership, then transformational leadership, and now it is conscious leadership. So transactional leadership, students would know it is profit making. Transformational leadership, we are making HR managers, better human beings and leaders. Now we have got conscious leadership. So the agenda for this forum was initially conscious leadership. So conscious leadership is when we are saying that you are making your own people sustainable enough to, build, grow for themselves. Sustainable leaders, basically, and building them in that manner. So are we kind of inculcating those values into the people around us, into our students who will support conscious leadership in the days to come? Is this question now linked to the concept of gender sensitivity, DEI? Now DEI is the, again, agenda for our particular panel, and in DEI, we need to understand these questions by doing DEI. What is DEI? Diversity, equity and inclusivity. By practicing DEI principles, are we able to make sustainable leaders? Because in my understanding, if a person has got a thought, compassion, empathy for the other person, he will also have empathy for the planet. But if there is no empathy for a fellow human, then there cannot be empathy for inanimate objects around us. So it's a very simple thing. See, if I am very hardwired and I think that profit only matters to me, and I cannot think about the second person sitting next to me who is a human being and probably has got a sick child at home, and he or she needs to go home early instead of attending a meeting, and I tend to penalize that person that you're not attending the meeting as a leader and as you have to go home, it's lack of empathy. So as a leader, if I don't feel empathy for a fellow human, how can I feel empathy for the planet? So at the core of the understanding of this concept is that we should be raising such leaders who balance empathy with profitable goals. And if we can do that through DEI principles, probably we have got a winner at hand. A very lofty ideal, very difficult task, which I will invite now Dr. Gitanjali to shed light upon, because she's the right person to talk about this, about DEI inculcating to the business school. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Very rich introduction of the topic, and I would, since this session relates to diversity, so I would focus on gender diversity. How we are dealing with gender diversity in our workplaces, at home, and in our social places is influenced by a lot of factors, probably education, social exposure, upbringing at family, family values that have been inculcated in us. There is another aspect which influences it. Just like, we're talking about plastics are slow poison. Similarly, the advertisements that we see in our day-to-day life, they also largely influence how we deal with gender issues at home, at workplace, in the society, everywhere around us. Total personality of a person is slowly and in a subtle way influenced by the advertisements. Okay, so I come to some of the advertisements probably that you must have seen in your day-to-day life. Have you seen advertisement of Johnson's baby products? Have you ever seen men buying baby products? So that means, in a very subtle way, we are imbibing that thought in the current generation that purchasing of baby products is the prime responsibility of the female members of the family, whether it is the mother or dadi or anyhow. Then you must have seen that Harpic advertisement where Mr. Akshay Kumar is selling Harpic to the female buyers. He's the only male person in that whole place. All the potential buyers are females, which means that keeping the toilets clean is the prime responsibility of the females of the house. They are so concerned about keeping the toilet. It is none of the male members' business to ensure what is Harpic. How is it important? Then another advertisement which we must have come across most of the times, this green tea, Dabur honey advertisements. You have to drink this Dabur honey and put a little bit lemon to stay fit. Most of the times, I haven't come across an advertisement where keeping fit and looking good, in any of such advertisements, men are shown. Keeping fit and looking good are primarily in such advertisements. Women are shown, that is their business. Have you ever seen women in any financial services advertisement or banking advertisements? Primarily, wherever we are selling financial products, banking services, you majorly see men, because again, this imbibes that thought that financial decisions are the domain of men of the family, and women need not enter that domain. Then, especially most of the health products ad where you have to stay fit, look slim, in all such advertisements, females are shown. In all the domestic appliances advertisements, mixie, washing machines, most of the times you see the women are using those appliances, although it is not very difficult to wash clothes in a fully automatic washing machine. But still, they are traditionally being shown by a woman using, and whenever making that purchase decision, almost all domestic appliances advertisements. For all the kitchen products, masala, except for Mr. This MDH, he is himself the manufacturer and promoter. But primarily you see always the women are tossing that pan and using the masalas. I'll be very, very precise. So most of the times the women are tossing the pan and cooking, and especially for this oil advertisements, refined oil advertisements, masala advertisements, saffal advertisements, you always see women making the purchase decisions. So this is again what I said. This is very slowly and in a very subtle way putting that thought inside your mind that all these are female-oriented issues, and again this is how the gender orientation is slowly being built in the society.
Madam, the women are normally decision maker for white goods and masala.
Sir, let me, because they have given me the warning, so let me finish it.
The market share will go down.
And the female models are getting these assignments, so they are earning money.
Sir, but that is influencing the way society is being influenced, Fair and Lovely advertisements, although they have modified their advertisement campaign, but in a way Fair and Lovely is primarily a female-oriented product, and women need to look fair and beautiful. Now, again, somewhere down the line, the marketers have realized that this is not a sustainable way. Some marketers, some products have realized that we need to break these stereotypes. We need to move away from the basically to sell more. Marketers are always oriented to ensure their product sells. Either they go with the thought process, the traditional thought process, they just have to ensure their product sells. So Johnson's Baby soap, if they show that the men of the house are purchasing it, probably it won't sell. So they have to I'm not saying that they are breaking the stereotypes to change the society, no. they are breaking the stereotype. Somewhere down the line there is a realization that probably we can sell more and we can earn more if we break the stereotypes. Okay, so now many of the new advertisements are so designed that they show the men of the family selling the non-traditionally shown products. Like I have seen one advertisement where Mr. Pankaj Tripathi is selling an advertisement pressure cooker and making a khichdi in the kitchen. Then there is another advertisement. Pantene has been coming up with a series of advertisements over the years. Sometimes, they actually fight against it by saying that, okay, women, as she said, you don't need to be a superwoman. So their advertisement campaign is somewhere going in that direction, that women need not push themselves too hard and they need not be superwomen. So probably they think that if they propagate this line, women will buy Pantene more. Okay. Then Biba again has been coming up with Change the Convention advertisement, where they are, in a very subtle way, the male member of the father of the family is questioning not just his daughter but his son also, ki when you also go out you have to tell me. So they are in a very subtle way showing trying to introduce a very subtle change in their advertisement design. And in a way it is everything that you see, everything that you're exposed of influences your mindset. Then Havells Hawa Badlegi advertisement, again that advertisement also as the logo, the tagline also only Hawa Badlegi. So where the husband and wife go to a registrar office and they say that not just a female, even the man can change the surname, although it is a very extreme situation. Airtel has been coming up with a share the load advertisement where Ariel says that okay, even the men can do basic household works, at least as basic as washing clothes in a washing machine. So probably they think that by propagating this kind of advertisement where women are shown in a powerful position, that okay, the men can also wash the clothes. So they call it femvertising. And they can sell more. So again, this Ariel people also had a series of advertisements. They were coming up every year. They were changing the punch lines and coming up with empowering theme advertisements over the years. So there are many such advertisements. So what my message is that advertisements are in a way influencing how the society thinks as far as the gender is concerned. It is just like a slow poison. We have to be equally careful about exposure to advertisements as much as we are careful about the plastic in food. So that is also shaping the way people think about how they, because these people go to the workplaces, these people go to the schools, and these people go to the society. And again, the whole, they build the culture. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Gitanjali, for adding a new perspective today. Thank you. So the students over here, just a quick question for you, just to enlighten the audience along with ma'am. So how many of the students here specializing in marketing and communications? Because I know quite a few students from the school is here probably, right? So anybody who is specializing in marketing, communication can raise your hand. Any of the students? The business school students, if you're there? No? Specializing? Okay, great. So suppose you are like, enrolled to make an ad, and like ma'am has given an example of so many ads. So do we think that a job profile for a student like him, when he can actually say no to the stereotypes and he can create a design or ad which kind of involves a different kind of a make-believe and then present it to his bosses, to the product development team, which can come up with a new kind of a portfolio. Then this mindset has got to change, because students like him are the future. They will get placed. Once they get placed in organizations, they will be building those ads. So if they can change those ads, if they can bring that mindset which will be the change, we can see futuristic ads which are different. which is quite possible. So we will address this question in the later stages probably when we take it up. In the interest of time, now we move to Sir, that is Deepak Jain Sir, and we would like you to request on a very strong note how DEI can help us with the bottom line profitability, because that is your domain, Sir, and we want to hear from you. DEI should have an impact, positive impact on profitability. This is...
Yes, friends, DEI, these are the new governance standards in the world, and India is catching up with these governance standards. In fact, I believe the ESG reporting also somehow covered DEI, how the company is taking care of diversity, equity and inclusion. And we again, our main topic is consciousness. So I believe if we are conscious, we take care of diversity, we take care of equity, we take care of inclusion, we take care of gender equality. And if we are unconscious, we are still living in the past. If a person lives in the past, he is unconscious. He is not catching up with the new scenario. The new scenario is that we have India and the world, United Nations has given us sustainable goals. We have to achieve gender parity by 2030, which is not possible. In fact, as per one research, India may take another more than 60 years to achieve gender parity, even more. So it is again, all the leaders are sitting here. If we want to move towards a developed country, we need gender parity, we need DEI governance standards. Although in all our sessions we had diversity, but मैंने ये I told Jyoti that इस session में diversity होना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है, और नहीं रहेगी तो मैं मेरा नाम ना देना. Then Vikas was also here, so I requested him also. In one of the session on International Women Day, so I was speaking. मैं कहीं आने जाता रहता हूँ as a speaker. So one of my friend, she is my good friend, so she was not speaking that day. So she said, it is strange, on International Women's Day, you are speaking. So again, it is a bias, gender parity. क्यों आपने वो जो mindset है उसको change करना है ना. If I have consciousness, I may be man, I may be woman. I will speak and promote others to have gender parity. So I need not be this side of the table, that then only I can promote gender parity. And friends, it is for sure that if we want to move towards a developed country, developed nation, we need gender parity, and it is each and everyone's responsibility that we should work toward it. ये बहुत ज़रूरी है हम सबों के कि इस तरफ हम काम करें. कई बार हम लोग बोल देते हैं कि अभी भी माइंडसेट वैसे ही है, अभी पर चीज़ें काफ़ी इम्प्रूव हुई, काफ़ी चीज़ें इम्प्रूव हुई हैं. तो खासकर जो ओल्ड पीपल हैं उन लोगों को अपने आप को थोड़ा सा अपनी कॉन्शियसनेस को इम्प्रूव करना पड़ेगा. दैट थिंग्स आर मूविंग एंड बट मैं एक ये बात भी सोचता हूँ, कहता हूँ दैट यू मे बी आइदर ऑफ द जेंडर. इफ यू हैव डिटर्मिनेशन, इफ यू हैव will power, you can definitely achieve. And in one of the research it was found that all those leading ladies of India and the world, they might not have avail any special privileges. They reached the height because of their determination that उनको तो ये था ही करना है.
And women are always, sir, working overtime to prove themselves, yes, that they are as good or little better. So that threshold women always have to cross, just to prove that okay, we are at par. The double overtime work has to be done.
Although I mean in Indian companies at Vikas is here, we have कितना independent women का कितना है? 1/3 है. 1/3 parliament.
Yeah, depends upon the whether the chairman is executive or not.
Yeah. In parliament also we now have 1/3 reservation, thanks to all of you.
In boards, one woman director should be there.
Only one
woman director.
Although I don't know हम उसको कितना effectively कर पा रहे हैं, and as per one research,
1/3 should be independent directors and one woman can be non-executive or executive, but has to be one woman director. Yes. That's the rule.
So it has to be there, and I have found that
how many CEOs are there? How many women CEOs are there in the 1,000 company? Can you tell me?
Yeah,
We have a very good examples like organization Nykaa, Sugar Cosmetics. So things are changing
Very, very
fast. No, things, it will take time, but things are changing.
So,
Yes, 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 मैं 1 minute और लूँगा. So, friends, when we have diversity, equity, inclusion, and gender parity, particularly gender parity, so we have found that we have a healthy environment. We have good decision making. We have creativity in the organization. In the creativity, yes, please, please, friends, audience, and we have long-term sustainability. And women are more sensitive to environment and the nature. And if you are in the leadership position, then it can certainly help the environment. It also brings holistic solutions to the problems when we have gender parity. Better problem solving, innovativeness, and inclusive governance. Governance पे भी effect पड़ता है if we have good gender parity. It reduces corruption also. As per one research, it reduces corruption also. So we appreciate, and resource management. Women can manage resources.
there are few women bosses in the jail currently, so yes, but there are majority men bosses who are in the jail. Yes, of course, the corruption is definitely less with women. Again, in the interest, thank you so much, Deepak Jain sir. I mean, this wonderful listening to you. So our last speaker in the panel is Vikas Tiwari sir, and your specific questions, sir, which we want to ask
If you
is.
allow me, I
Ji.
would just like to add upon
Ji.
the first question which you asked, Deepak sir.
The profitability
Yeah,
part.
profitability.
Yes.
So see, how I look at, one of the basic problem why, management failed to implement and promote the ESG things. They failed to, relate, or they failed to, align the ESG goals with the corporate strategy. And that's where they fail to look at ESG as an opportunity, and rather they start looking at it as a risk. And there are data to show it, right? Not only in India, in countries like Europe and US. Now coming to how the gender diversity could add up or could strengthen your bottom line. That's a very important question. So in a current scenario, right, where most of the growth and the growth is coming up because of the service sector, right, where the profitability is not coming from plants and machinery. It's coming from the services the employees are delivering to their clients or even to the customer facing organization. So when a workplace where you provide equitable environment where employees it could be female employees as well, at times coming from my experience, when I need someone in legal, right, and someone who could stay for, even Deepak sir could relate it, someone who could stay with the organization of a longer period, right? It becomes challenge. What I should see at the CV every year changing, and when I see at the CV of of our female colleagues, I see they could stay at a longer period of time. But why they are? Isn't it that they are not getting a good opportunity? They are a good opportunity, but one of the primary factor for them that the organization where they are working or they are looking to join, is this a good environment, safe environment? Do that organization or management promote equal opportunity on the basis of gender? And if that is there, right, they would stay with the organization even if someone is offering better salary, right? And that's where with a better employee turnover, that's as an employer, you save a lot of cost on bringing up new employees, training them and helping them, and that's why I could see it that it directly relates to your bottom line.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Very well said.
एक चीज ऐड करूँगा कि normally we prefer कि in the department and organization we should have 50-50% ratio. बड़ा मुश्किल होता है करना. But Vikas is a proof. In my department, when I was heading the department, having around 15 to 20 employees, that I always try to maintain 50-50 ratio.
True.
We worked together once point of time.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. So I think very well said by Vikas sir that probably long-term goals of a female employee aligned to the organization is beneficial for the organization instead of changing employees who are looking for small increments or small change in money and therefore they're switching organizations, which is perfectly 100% because I come from Manav Rachna University and the university has got 80% female employees. Now university anyways have got teachers. So teachers are mostly coming from the women section. But yes, this is perfectly the alignment, maybe a little less money for the people, but more alignment to their personal matrices. So I think with that we would like to conclude this session because there is a lot of pressure. We are standing between the lunch and the majority of people sitting over here. So very well thought of by Deepak Jain sir and JNU for hosting this. And I would request the students to take a note that whether this vertical can be really beneficial for a business school and how the business school should take it forward. So please keep that in mind. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists for their insightful discussion. Now I would like to invite Dr. Vikram Bansal to felicitate Ms. Soma Arora. Now
worldwide. Renowned in Delhi, NCR and India, she is a leading psychologist, celebrity and twice TEDx speaker. Do we have our next panelist for the session is Ms. Shraddha Avasthi, Vice President, Sanriksha SISF WWA and NLP and hypnosis coach. Dr. Avasthi brings nearly 18 years of comprehensive expertise in teaching, training, recruitment, management and administration. Renowned for bridging the industry-academia gap, especially post-COVID-19. She's adept at implementing innovative training programs and HR software solutions. Dr. Avasthi initiative include expert talks and workshops on attitude training, HR analytics and essential skill development.
Our next panelist is Dr. Arvind Arihan. He is an associate professor in Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management and Entrepreneurship, JNU. Dr. Arihan sir is a senior academician with 17.5 years of experience. His expertise spans microfinance, agripreneurship, and rural enterprise development. Notably, he has led numerous impactful research projects. Also, he holds a patent for a portable internet banking device, showcasing his multifaceted contribution to academia and entrepreneurship.
Our next panelist is Mr. Manoranjan Sharma, Chief Economist at Infomedics Ratings. Mr. Sharma is a transformative leader renowned for driving growth and maximizing team potential. With a strategic vision, he spearheaded initiative in product development, business process re-engineering, and risk analysis, bolstering the bank position. His training programs saw significant qualitative and quantitative enhancement impacting over 3 lakhs employees. A prolific author with over 2050 publications including esteemed journals.
Our next panelist is Ms. Anisha Dhingra. She is a rehabilitation psychologist with previous experience in counseling and psychotherapy. She looks forward to providing a space where people can come freely to seek support, feel heard and understood. She believes in helping people to reconnect well with oneself along with society. Our next panelist is Ms. Anuga Agarwal. She is a Counsel International at United Airlines. Ms. Agarwal, a senior lawyer and a company secretary with 17 plus years of expertise specialized in corporate laws including Companies Act, Indian Bankruptcy Code and competition laws. Notable for advocacy and legal advice, she handled litigation, contracts, FEMA and arbitration. She is also a prolific painter, writer, dancer, and traveler, showcasing her creative talents at various exhibitions.
Our next panelist for this session is Dr. Yogendra Singh, Senior Vice President, Noida Management Association. And
President. Now he's president.
My apologies. President, Noida Management Association and Professor at JSS Academy of Technical Education, Noida. Dr. Singh, with 22 years of combined experience in academia and corporate realm, serves as professor and head of the Department of Management Studies at JSS Academy of Technical Education, remarkably earning his PhD in management at just 25. He has authored 7 books covering various disciplines and contributed prolifically at national and international journals. Our next panelist for the session is Mr. Saurabh Agarwal, member of IAMA National Council and Head Strategy and Growth Public Service Business. TCS, Mr. Agarwal is a dynamic leader driving strategy and business growth for the public service sector and prior expertise in travel, transportation and hospitality. With extensive experience in diverse IT function, he excels in global customer engagement, having led multicultural teams across USA, Australia, Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East and Africa. He is renowned for his exceptional management and leadership skills. I open the panel for the discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Dr. Nisha Khanna. I think so. We start with Shraddha ma'am. Ma'am, we want to know your views about what is the role of consciousness, basically, how in the empathy and in the leadership. How you talk about that, how our conscious decision making plays a role, or how empathy is placing a role in leadership in today's modern scenario.
Yes. So I just want to add my views about conscious leadership and how it is important and for the sustainable development goals and ESG and all. So as far as conscious leadership is concerned, so it means leading with heightened awareness, intentionality and integrity. So focusing not just for the profit but on the well-being of our stakeholders, our customers, employees, and the communities, and not last but not the least, the environment. So it is very important in today's sustainable work environment. There are several key aspects also, and it involves self-awareness, empathy, and the ethical decision making, and a commitment to foster positive and sustainable work environment. And the key aspects from my point of view, the key aspects are the ethical expectations from each and everyone. So ethical expectations are very much important when we are talking about the environment, when we are talking about the sustainability goals. So we have to take care of the ethics when we are talking about the conscious leadership, because as a conscious leader, we have to understand others. We have to understand, first of all, we have to understand ourselves, then we have to understand the others, the opinion of others, as well as we have to understand the situations. So situation is nowadays is related to environment. We are talking about environment, how to protect environment and all. So ethical expectations are there for a conscious leader, employee engagement, and then innovation and adaptability. So nowadays innovation and adaptability, because if we are not able to adapt the technologies, so we are not able to consciously adapt to the environment, and we are not able to fully give the solutions to the sustainable goals. So, and the reputation management. So a conscious leader should always focus on the reputation management. Reputation management means now we are in the age of social media. So we have to take care of each and every misstep. So by taking care of these few steps in our day-to-day life, we can consciously activate our empathy towards others, towards the opinions of others, and towards the situations. And a conscious leader should be empathetic by aware of himself, first of all. Then second thing is he should be having social skills, because these are the part of empathy. So social skill, if you are not empathize, if you are not able to see and understand the other person's perspective, you are not able to give them the solutions. So it is important to empathize in a positive way, in a more what we can say, in empathetic way. So, and the last thing is, conscious leader should focus on the long-term success. Long-term success means we have to take short-term steps, short-term mission statements, and we have to put ourselves into those missions, and we have to take care of each and every statement, and to fulfill our long-term goal to succeed. So we must focus on the self-reflection. So empathy is the basic thing is self-reflection. To empathize, if we have to be empathetic with others, we have to first reflect ourselves, how we talk, how we behave, how we judge others. So these are the things. Then the mindful practices are very much important to understand others. Then seeking feedback is also an important factor in empathy. Then open communication with the team members, with the team leaders, with the team, with the group in the organization. Open communication, we must, a leader should encourage the new things, encourage the diverse expectations, diverse perspective of every employee. And the regular check-ins, because the continuous feedback is also important part of this. So I must, at last I would like to just close this session with what we have to do. If we are going and moving towards the sustainable development goals and all, and we are a conscious leader, we all in this room, we all are consciously leading in our positions. So what we have to do, if we are not able to understand, or if we are not able to put or implement successfully the things, what we can do, we can change our strategy, number one. And then we have to change our limiting beliefs, because limiting beliefs are the factor, the crucial factor, because sometimes we are stuck in our beliefs, and because of these limiting beliefs, we are not able to move forward. So just change your limiting beliefs, then make decisions, make more decisions, and then create a sense of urgency, because nowadays we have to create a sense of urgency to save our environment, to save ourselves and all. And then the last one is change your pattern. Thank you. This is all from my side.
I just want to add, because when we manage teams, I sometimes do the coaching of the leaders who are handling other team of 700 to 1500, 1000 or 20,000 employees. I do their coaching, and definitely I'm a marriage and family counselor that comes to me, and when I do evaluate them, I find their empathy level is very low. Right now I'm also dealing with one client who is leading a 700 employees in the company, a very successful company. Within 5 years it goes from I will say a person was earning 50,000 rupees and now it is like 1,000 crores or something, or 5,000 crores. I have a question to all of you who deal in corporate, especially to Anubha. When conflict resolutions comes, because empathy plays an important role in decision making, and when I see the profile of EQ, emotional intelligence, we are all aware, and self-awareness all over the world, we all know 80% of public doesn't have self-awareness, even from the employees to a higher level. When I'm talking about senior management, where they are themselves operating the companies, either they are listed on the, I would say, BSCS index something. So how would you say that, because giving a feedback to a leader, it is very difficult. I remember I was handling 10 years back one client who has 20,000 employees under him, and I told him after 40 minutes my interaction, okay sir, your EQ is very low. And he said, how can you say this? And it took me 8 months, and after 8 months there is one test called Zohari window. He did that test. I don't know who knows about psychology. That's a 360. You got the feedback from the team. He said, what doctor you said me in first 40 minutes after our consultation. I understood today because I told him, we did some testing and we realized that he was emotionally unstable. And he was leading a team. I don't know how to give the feedback to such people. Even as a professional, they chose me by their conscious decision making. But I want to know how a leader get the feedback, because teams are saying something, but leader is not accepting that. So,
what you're stating actually is it's a perennial problem, and I don't think anybody will have an answer to how approach leaders. A lot of times.
Yeah, sure. Good.
Okay, so a lot of times what I have seen is that, and when I'm asked this question also, I say that most of our jobs it's actually about ego management. It is less about the job itself, because people are difficult to deal with and nobody wants to hear the hard truth. Now, the only thing we can do as individuals, I cannot direct someone else, but as an individual, what you can do is to accept parts of you that you don't like. It's all right. We all have a mix of a lot of things, the good and bad, but it's very difficult to accept those things which are not okay about you. And feedback certainly has to go in a manner where it's not that direct. Now, how do you do that is the challenge, and also to give it a practical example. Sometimes practically what we do is that we give an example of someone else and indirectly try and say something, so that someone who's at a position like that and is intelligent enough will understand and maybe introspect. So I think briefly I'll stop here and let Genji answer.
Yeah, actually first of all
May I add a sentence to the point? My name is N.K. Gupta. I'm a blind member of DMA since 1977. Dealing with a client, and the main advisor was, I am Ahmedabad founder member, late Dr. S.P.S. Pruthi. I was his OSD. 450 crore company based out in Ludhiana. We were doing renovation for them. Now the CMD of that organization and around 28 people, MDs, nephews, nieces and all. He said, Siddharth ji, बिल्कुल clear बताना मुझे, clear दसना की कमियां हैगी साढ़े च, ताकि असी improve करिए इस कंपनी को 1000 crore में लेके जाना वे. Now there are some industries, some people in the world who wish to, be very, very open and open for learning. Thank you for listening. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Actually, ma'am, what happens when we talk of feedback? First of all, it should flow from the top to bottom, and the owners, the management, they should have the capacity to listen first, and listen that they should be agree for disagree also. This is the attitude that we are welcoming your what type of feedback, be it sometimes then number of times there can be negative feedback, but there is a saying that nindak paase rakhiye. Agar if everybody is saying goody for you, it means they are not your well wishers always. So yeah, so that's why whomsoever is this. So I myself, apart from the academics, I am a industrialist, and I always give full space to my people that whatever wrong you are finding. That's why number of places they have the hidden feedback system where you can give your feedback. It is locked and it is only open by the MD or the top management, so that there cannot be any biasness. If you are, so there should be two channels. One is the type of hierarchy you are following in the management. You ask for the feedback, key result areas, whatever the format you have, you are following. But whatever you are following, every company they have their different type of performance appraisals, a type of procedure of taking the feedbacks. But one direct feedback system should be there, where a individual can directly tell you. Even the central government, the PM office, the Chief Minister's office, they have this system where a individual can directly give his or her views or can put any feedback or complaint. So again, it all depends upon the type of the top management, what kind of...
Basically, in conflict resolutions, as a therapist, we teach them that empathy plays an important role. I think so, Anisha...
We have to understand first.
Active listening is an important factor in empathy.
So, Anisha, you would like to add something about empathy, because it plays an important role when we teach conflict resolution techniques either to the people, either through the groups or meetings. We tell them that empathy is the only key where connection, courage and compassion, where empathy is even the lesser than the compassion level. If we all know, empathy means feeling with you and compassion means I am there to help you out. So when any conflict you have to resolve in the team or within the members, either it is the directors, board of directors or MDs, or either with your team, compassion comes, I am there to help you out. Like I am there to get you out from the mud. And where the ego pampering you said plays an important role, not to be critical or criticize the person, always address them with the I statement.
But I think, sorry, just before she begins, you can only empathize when you yourself are very secure as an individual. If you're so worried about your position, it's so much you're not going to be able to give. To give, you have to move beyond yourself. So I think it's very internal. How we are as people, and that's why we define good leaders and not so good leaders. Some are leaders, some are bosses. There's a difference between authority and being one with the people. So I think that's a lot of internal job that needs to be done. Coachings are great and we all do them. We also we've had one recently in our organization. It's called Crucial Conversations. Because it is crucial conversations between employees and the leaders where employees can give feedback to leaders. But theoretically and practically doing it is a lot about how safe and secure you are, and you've accepted parts of you that I'm flawed too. I have these flaws and I accept them, and this is where I can contribute and that is where that person can contribute. So meeting in between and knowing that there are pluses and minuses either ways. It's not that I'm a leader so I'm the best and they have to listen to me or I am better than them. It's just a part of something I contribute. And there are other skills that person has.
So in conscious leadership, what you are saying, it is accepting the multiple perspectives.
Correct.
Which each person, whether it is an employee or part of the management or the group of directors, they plays an important role.
And being very aware of yourself. And I mean the bad parts, good though.
So I would say, Anisha, I will try to address this. How a person can be self-aware, or a leader can make their team self-aware?
Alright, so talking about this very important concept, how we can we can increase the self-awareness within the team and towards ourselves is very important, because if we are sitting as a leader, we are not just focusing on bringing the result, we are actually working in a team and we have different colleagues to work with, different people to work with, and not just them, we have people to deal with. So understanding their needs and having a good communication is very much important there. So talking about this particular thing, I think we can, it's a very important thing to have a proper culture where we can have a discussion with the people and the relationship is formed. So that relationship building is a key to that. So it is very important that in the beginning also only we are able to develop a good relationship with the team, wherein the team feel that they are safe enough and we are providing that unconditional respect there, and we are providing the openness there that okay, I am here to listen to you, and now you can share all those feedbacks that might sound little uncomfortable but which can be very crucial for the team. So I think relationship building is very much important in communication, as we all are discussing that communication is the key to leadership. If we are not communicating to ourselves, if we are not communicating to our team, then we are lacking somewhere. So talking about the self-awareness, how we can communicate, there are several strategies what we can apply here. Being a psychologist, we train a lot of strategies which help us to understand ourselves. One, journaling is amazing when you actually journal it down to identify what you're doing, how it is resulting, how it is affecting your company, how is it affecting yourself, how is it affecting the other people, and then understanding why it is happening. A lot of time, like I would like to give you one example, a lot of time we end up having some cognitive distortions. I think being a psychologist, ma'am would agree that, let me just explain what cognitive distortions are. So basically, if I give you an example, let's say that I am a person who is wearing a pink colored goggles. Since my beginning, I'm wearing that pink colored goggles. Tell me, will white color exist for me? I will be able to see white as pink only. Why? Cognitive distortions क्या होते हैं? These are the lenses, these are the filters that we are having that disturb, that dispute our cognition, and we are not able to see the reality. So when we are self-aware, when we are doing the journaling process, it is very important to understand why certain things are coming in my mind, why I am just behaving in this particular way. If I am taking the decision, why it is not able to get to the the result I wanted to. Then taking feedback from yourself and from the team is very important. Like ma'am mentioned, Johari window can be very effective when you are actually trying to understand the concept of yourselves within the team as well, because with the help of Johari window, what we are actually able to do, that we are able to see the sides that we don't see ourselves, but other people can give the feedback to it. So having a proper communication, doing certain self-meditative activities, self-reflections can be very helpful. Understanding your own patterns can be very important just to know that where we are standing, what is lacking, and if there is any perceptual biases, is there any communication biases. All these self-reflection activities can be very helpful. And then we discussed about the open feedback mechanism. We discussed how we can give the feedbacks anonymously. That can be very helpful for the growth. So I would like to...
Mr. Saurabh, I would like to know your views about the same, because you are working in the corporate world. How your company or you people actually help to people to be self-aware? Because this is the biggest challenge in the world all over.
Being part of an organization, probably the largest public private organization, employs more than 6 lakh employees globally. So with more than 6 lakh employees globally, one of the largest private employer in India, we do have practices, trainings, programs for each and everything, from work-wise, communication, soft skills, and skills related to EQ and everything. During COVID, when all of us were working from home, we had our people, senior people, get trained on peer counseling, which included your psychological counseling, how you can work with your team on counseling. And people like me, we have been on both sides of this. We have had our bosses who were like that, and our team thinks we are bosses like that, or we have team members who have created or are problem creators. So self-awareness, I don't think anyone can teach you. That's my experience.
So I would like to add this. Go ahead. Self-awareness, because as a therapist we teach, or as EQ and training you give to the teams or the leaders also, self-awareness is basic thing what you feel at the moment. And this is the biggest challenge. And there is some disorders also, but this is a skill set. When you talk about EQ or emotional intelligence, it says it's a skill set which you can learn. You can show them the cards about the emotions, what you are feeling today. Every day asking your employees the feedback, how's your mood today, what you are feeling, how you are looking like. Giving you an example, if someone entered in this room, how even the body is giving you the message. Sometimes we enter into a party and we feel some indifferent. We know everyone, or either sometimes we don't know, and we do not able to, I would say, point it out what is disturbing here. Why I am feeling awkward here. That feeling itself, which is giving you a physical message, that is the sign of self-awareness. So self-awareness, first sign comes off from the physical part, and then it comes to the emotional part. And we always see it may be the itchiness in the body. It may be you feel warmthness in the body. Sometimes, like the way we eat food, I don't know, lots of times we eat chapati and the rice. There must be some pattern. You eat either chapati first or either rice first. You get up in the morning, you go and go to the washroom first, or you go and brush your teeth first, whatever it is your pattern. So these ways, we have emotional patterns also. What will happen and how you will respond, how you will react. These patterns can be because it's the role of conscious leadership. A conscious leader do these things consciously. And when you start asking yourself how I am feeling. I met this person today, I went into the meeting, what I am feeling today. So, Anubha, I think so.
No, all I wanted to say, I wanted to add to what Mr. Saurabh said. I agree with you that there are tools that assist you in doing a lot of things. But when he said that self-awareness cannot be taught, the reason I kind of resonate with that is because I feel you can certainly teach someone something and they can learn if they're willing to, but some people are just naturally the way they are. I mean, it's easier if you are naturally somebody who's self-aware. Right now, information, I mean, there's so much information around us.
We call it alexithymia, the people who are not willing to learn or sometimes don't understand emotions. There is a technical term, we called it alexithymia, where they have a lack of processing of information, especially about feelings. But again, when you go to EQ, there is a skill set when every day you keep doing the task, it's the skills.
So then when hiring happens, I feel it is important to take care of these things. Hiring sometimes happens based on where have you worked before, what's your educational background, maybe you're bringing everything in terms of your intelligence. But whether an evaluation is happening in terms of those leadership positions on so-called soft skills, but they are not actually soft skills, they are crucial skills to leadership, and that needs to be taken care of at the time of hiring, is also one of the points.
They also understand these skills or not. The people who are hiring.
Yeah.
Number of times they are not competent, or if they have such kind of potential also. But they are given the formats that you have to hire the employees, and that is large number of employees, because like sir is saying 6 lakh set of people. I also know one of the person that was authorized to hire 30,000 people. But when I saw the performer, I asked few questions. I said, do you then so there are certain things.
Large organizations, we are templatized.
Yeah.
We work on a template. We cannot have an individual
interaction.
That's what.
I was invited in our army of one of the webinars, and I asked them what you people are doing there. So they said, if you start following Nisha the way you are saying it, I think so 90% of the people won't be there.
Yeah, what is my take on the conscious and mindful decision? Basically, our everyday's decision is depend on the righteous decision. What is wrong and what is right, we know that things. But what is wrong and what is right, that is decided by the morality of the people. And if people lacks the morality, then society also lacks the morality. So morality is the most important part that we found, because in this toxic world we know that while we are driving, if someone passed from our car, we got agitated. Okay, so this is the level of toxicity we can found in modern world. Though we are said modern, okay, we adopted the American model. We adopted earlier we adopted the Russian model. So if we see in American model, definitely there is a liberty, but there is no equality, because one of the most unequal world you can found in America. And vice versa, if we see about the Russian model, where you can found the equality, but there is no liberty. So what is the lacking part? If you see, we always think that India should become India should like a developed world by 2047, or most of the people said that India should be like America, superpower, Vishwaguru. But for what I say, what I feel, India should remain India. Okay, what is our inherited values that we forget? Okay, so what is the connecting dot as far as equality and liberty is concerned? That is fraternity. So if we see there is no fraternity in American model, they lack the fraternity. Same way in Russia, they lack the fraternity. So fraternity is the connecting dot between equality and liberty. So if there is a maitri in the society, in the people, so he forgets the super value of I, and that can inculcate. You can develop the maitri. Yes. So definitely our society lacks the maitri. So let's if we say about the conscious leader, so we have the two models of the conscious leader, two or three great personalities as far as the conscious leader is concerned. In 1982, somewhere around, Jack Welch took over the charge of the CEO of the GE Electricals, and GE was at that time somewhere around $12 billion companies. And when he complete his era, GE was the $412 billion company. GE was the. Okay, now Jack Welch was recognized as a neutron Jack. He was some people said that he was a transformational leader, but some people criticize that he was not actually a conscious leader. He was not at all a leader. He was an autocrat leader. Jack Welch was an autocrat leader because he fired somewhere around 1 lakh people. 1 lakh people to mitigate the cost cutting, you can imagine. So that was the one model. Same another we have the example of one leader, that is Reuben Mark. He was the CEO of Colgate Palmolive at the time. So these two leaders are the autocratic leader. In front of these two leaders, we have another Indian leader that is known as Verghese Kurian. So you can see how many persons changed their life. From the values of the Verghese Kurian, crores of people. You know the story of Amul, the white revolution. That is just because of the Verghese Kurian, small people, very, very down to earth people.
So as per you, quick decision making.
Yeah.
Like for example, for a leader, a person has to take the decision making, conscious decision making. So what factors plays an important role in conscious leadership for a decision making? Because it plays an important role either for a company, either for a profit, or for the well-being of the employees. It's like work-life balance. We talk about, especially after the COVID, too much about work-life balance. How the conscious decision making, what step a leader has to take for that, so that for the sustainability of the environment, what are the social responsibility or economic responsibilities. Means money is important, work-life balance is important, retaining the employees is important, everything is important.
Yeah, actually it is a selflessness of the leader. A leader should be selflessness. If he found, as Buddha already said that the human beings are selfish by birth. We adopted the selfishness. Human beings are selflessness by birth. There is no selfish when a person got birth. But by greed or by social values, we adopted the greed and selfishness. So leaders should be selflessness. You can enjoy the power in the powerlessness. See, if you like the chair, this tag mark, then you never enjoy this tag mark or this chair. So you must develop or inculcate the values of powerlessness. Then you enjoy the power. If you want to enjoy the ambitions or we can say various things, then you needs to become a selflessness. That is what my
I'm
take.
sorry to say, as a therapist we say...
No worries. That is your personal views. But see, we found many kind of mental disease in the urban elites or urban people.
Sir,
we know that.
No, as a therapist...
There is not at all any solutions.
We say that selflessness is a toxic thing.
No, it is not toxic thing.
Sometimes we have to be selfish about our own health.
Yes, that's why I'm saying it. Because selflessness, I don't know, is the right example of Indian housewives. They are so selfless, they sacrifice their career for the sake of kids, in-laws, partner. I would say there are lots of men also do. I'm sorry, I'm not want to say that because I have experienced such men also. But I would say, as a therapist, we teach selflessness is toxic. We have to talk about I versus we. When you sit in a flight, they says that put oxygen mask first, and then you think about the helping even this person sitting next to you, whether it's your family member. It's always about I versus
See, but you cannot accommodate the one example to the other example. Okay, that is the one example of the fly, but you cannot accommodate that example to the everyone's example. Every individual human being is a unique person. Okay.
No, so basic thing is why I said it, because if you say the leader is selfless, like the way you gave the example that he improved. Yeah, sir, you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, I'm Dr. Mukesh from Management School. The discussion was interesting, so I thought maybe I'll contribute. In a management concept, we call this a servant leadership, what Professor Arvind is trying to say is the concept of servant leadership.
Mahatma Gandhi is a servant.
Where you think, and even the current Prime Minister, it's not a political statement,
yeah.
But the current PM is also following the principle of servant leadership, where you say that you think beyond yourself, which was being shared by the other co-panelists also. So you don't work for yourself, you work for a cause. You believe in your team, you believe in organizations.
So we called it mutual happiness and mutual prosperity is the law of nature or the relationships.
Yes.
If
That
we
is the law of
focus on
nature
that-
only. That we human are the only survival species in this earth because we are selfish. But we get the repercussions of this selfish behavior.
So
and the near future.
I would say that I disagree with you for this opinion. It's not about selfish. There are so many people. We during the counseling sessions make them aware the other party is making you fool. So it keeps happening. So it's not about selfishness. I would say it's about a person, what your traits are. If someone is
बीच में काउंटर करूंगा राजेश खन्ना का सर आप ही के लिए आप ही बात बड़ी कर रहा हूँ सर राजेश खन्ना का एक गाना था यूं तो अकेला भी अक्सर गिर के संभल सकता हूँ मैं तुम जो पकड़ लो हाथ मेरा दुनिया बदल सकता हूँ मांगा है तुम्हें दुनिया के लिए कुछ तो सनम फैसला कीजिए इट मींस इट इज नॉट फॉर मी इट इज फॉर द सोसाइटी
sorry sir.
क्या बात है डॉक्टर साहब पिछली तालियां
Thank you, sir, for a very interesting discussion, and particularly that Hindi bit. That was most interesting. I think Dr. Nisha Khanna has raised some valid issues. I haven't worked in the corporate sector for about 40 years. So I was a part of Canara Bank, one of the largest public sector banks in the country with 120-year-old legacy, 90,000 employees, about 25 lakh crore of business. So I would like to respond it in two-pronged way. First is that any criticism, even though she has the good of the institution at heart, she tries to raise the bar, she tries to propel it in a new and a higher orbit. One thing is that in management, especially when talking to the top management persons of the level of CMD or chairman, you have to be a little sensitive, and all that criticism, even they should be given ideally on a one-to-one basis, not as a part of a group or a boardroom. Second, which also can help, I've worked with so many chairmen closely. What it says that, again, this is a difficult task, that maybe you can try to convince that sometimes there is a myopic view of looking at things, short-sighted. This was brought to the fore in the wake of the global financial crisis because some chairmen, some people have a very short tenure. So they're living from quarter to quarter balance sheet. The company should look good in this quarter in my tenure. So maybe as persons coming from the outside, as a consultant, as an advisor, you could try to push the point that there's no inherent conflict between the individual and the institution. And if you take a fairly long-term view, there's a convergence between the individual and the institution. So maybe short term you can take a hit, maybe things do not look good, but when we look at things in a proper, you will get your share of the credit, and maybe the institution history will be kinder to you. So these are some of my suggestions. Thank you.
So don't you think while quick decision making when plays a role, I think so optimism also plays a role, because conflicts between even the team members you have to resolve. Another thing is intrinsic motivation. When you talked about money, Arvindji, it's always about external motivation. It is called extrinsic motivation, where praise comes, where money comes, where status comes, and long run these things won't satisfy you. When Dr. Saab also talked about our leadership, about the servant all, and thinking about other things, it was basically about external motivation, internal motivation, which also plays meaningfulness, relationships. It also talks about how you find the purpose, how you trust in the people. So it's all about intrinsic motivation, because where the money doesn't play a role. When we are talking about today, Mr. Modi is not thinking about the money on that level, he's thinking about how to serve people. So I would say that here the monetary loans is because they are talking about external motivation. And when you are thinking about intrinsic motivation and internal motivation, that plays an important role in quick decision making along with the navigating emotions.
Actually, I am the Vipassana practitioner.
Okay.
So if you practice the Vipassana, there you can you can attain the highest level of equanimity, where you need to forget yourself also. So I also say ki at least you in your one life you need to practice one time. It's a 10-day sessions, and it is free of cost. They are not charging a single rupee. They provide you 3 times meals with boarding, everything. It is free of cost. So once you did there are mental patients everywhere, we found, and we got the remarkable result through Vipassana. Remarkable results, yeah. There are lots of conflicted people, but they got changed through Vipassana.
You want to add something on this?
I do not have anything to say on this for sure, but in general I'm just saying that we keep talking about how do we talk to a certain person because they are at a certain position. If we were to just see people just like we see ourselves, I mean, to realize that we are all connected. It's very inclusive. It's not like, instead of looking at a person as this person is a VP and going in the room thinking that person is a VP, the conversation is going to be very difficult. To just think of that person as an individual, and if I am talking to the person who's working for me at home and is serving me, I am still talking with the same sensitivity. So I just agree to the sensitivity point that what's really important is to realize that we are humans and we are all connected and we all have our share of anxieties and nerves. Everyone is the VP standing there or sitting there or making a speech in front of 10 people is equally nervous as the audience listening. So there is the moment you stop those boundaries from coming in terms of the positions or the taglines, it just becomes a little simpler to kind of navigate through this. Like just a perspective.
No, it's okay.
VP is my boss, I have to look him as VP.
No, I understand, and that is true, and that's why you have to take care of the fact that there is a position, but at the same time, when you put your point forward, if it comes with that humility and sensitivity, it will get across.
I just wanted to.
And certainly it is about moods and aaj mood kharab hai, aaj nahi kaise. So there are those things, and that is a part of sensitivity. Yeah. And I totally agree. Yeah, what I was absolutely, and what I was saying is not that you just go and talk to the person thinking that he's. The sensitivity aspect is there, where you take all of that into picture.
When you talked about feedback, sir, I was the founder of this courier company. I forget the name. Blue Dot. The first founder, who was the founders, and the family. I got the opportunity to interact. Her daughter is a very good friend of mine. So they said when we have to tell some employee to leave the organization, what we do, we write a letter to that employee and talk about all positive things. What he did for the organizations, and after that we give him the negative feedback. Okay, why? Because of these reasons you can't work in the organizations. So this is how the leaders work. And there is another organization leader I have who on the chain of hotels, and their daughter again had a very good friend of mine, and she told me that what my dad does, if something good is happening and the moment he started liking, you don't resonate with me at all, or he will not say a word to you. They'll say goodbye, thank you, Tata.
But I know some people, they even don't tell goodbye. They simply tell the guard that if so and so come, that ask him, thank you very much, not to come.
Right now also I'm dealing with one client. Again, they have the multiple businesses, and that lady said it, giving you example, because we were discussing on blocking people. Because in social media, blocking people is very normal. So her PA's number is with me, or her direct number is also with me. She said it, the day my PA's work is over, she will leave my company. I will block her number from my personal mobile forever. If she ever wants to meet me, she will go through the channel of office, then only she can come. So this is how the leaders work, who are going with the team of people.
Madam, will you allow somebody else to speak?
Yes, sir.
Act?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Akshay Sharma. I am former director, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, Government of India. 97% of the total enterprises in the manufacturing or the service sector falls under micro, with a turnover of less than 5 crore. If you want to see the leadership quality, feedback, collective responsibility, go and visit any small unit. The proprietor or the managing director has linked directly with the worker. He knows their name, the name of his father, mother, everything, and personal touch. The R&D innovation happened not only monthly, day to day. And it's a collective leadership. And they never face a union. A closed down, कोई strike नहीं होती है. and we are talking here of corporate जहाँ 1000 2000 वर्कर हैं, FD को पता ही नहीं है कौन कहाँ हेड है. तो I think but there is unfortunately this sector more than 6 crore rupees they are contributing in so many pollution. Or this sector unfortunately has not been addressed by the government of India in the policy making कि इनका जो रोल है गंद मचाने में, पोल्यूशन करने में, बच्चों को एम्प्लॉय करने में, डिस्पैरिटी, you name anything, everything is happening in this sector. इसका ध्यान उधर गया नहीं. And then we are talking about planet को बचाना है, इसको बचाना है. तो I think some suggestion from JNU should go to the ministry कि भाई इसको भी आप जोड़ो, अवेयरनेस क्रिएट करो, वो उनका भी जिम्मेवारी है कंट्री को बचाने के लिए और घर के साथ.
Sir, thank you very much. Actually, next I was about to say this only because एक हमारा last एक part बच गया है, वो integration of ethics, moral ethics and business. So first of all, thank you very much for your wonderful contribution and wonderful suggestions. But एक कहावत है sir कि if you start something, start implementing from yourself. तो अगर हम कुछ करना चाहते हैं तो सबसे पहले अपने आप से शुरुआत करें, खुद से शुरुआत करें. सर नहीं सर, मैं ग्रेट सर, ग्रेट सर, ग्रेट.
I invite you to visit.
सर मैं आऊंगा सर. मैं आप ही की बात को बड़ी कर रहा हूँ सर. जो आप बता रहे हैं रिगार्डिंग दैट जो गंद फैल रहा है, पॉल्यूशन, वो कहते हैं ना कि मचलती हुई नदियों की औकात ही क्या है. समुद्र वो पहाड़ों से निकलती हैं, समुद्र में मिल जाती हैं, और करने को तो हम खुद ही इनको गंदा करते हैं, फिर भी गंगा पावन कहलाती हैं. तो सर मैं उसी की बात कर रहा हूँ जिस गंदगी की आप बात कर रहे हैं, जिस तकलीफ की आप बात कर रहे हैं. वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि जियो और जीने दो, बट इट कैन ओनली कम थ्रू जब एक स्टेज आती है ना कि थोड़ा है, थोड़े की जरूरत है. एंड दिस थोड़ा इज ए सब्जेक्टिव कॉन्सेप्ट. वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड. एक गाड़ी है, 2 गाड़ी ले लिए, कितना करेंगे हम, कितना पोल्यूशन फैलाएंगे हम. तो हम तो डाई बनाते हैं, हम तो कलर्स बनाते हैं, हम तो जूते बनाते हैं, टेनरी बनाते हैं, गंगा जी को मेला कर रहे हैं हम. आई एम नॉट कंसर्न कि मतलब मैं टैक्स पे कर रहा हूँ, आई एम पेइंग द टैक्स, बट आई एम क्रिएटिंग द पोल्यूशन. मैं गंगा जी को मेला कर रहा हूँ, मेरा वो कंसर्न नहीं है. मैं पोल्यूशन कर रहा हूँ, मेरा वो कंसर्न नहीं है. मैंने चिमनी लगा दी है बिकॉज वो MSME का मेंशन है, पोल्यूशन बोर्ड का मेंशन है कि चिमनी की हाइट कितनी मीटर की होगी. मैंने चिमनी की हाइट उतनी मीटर कर दी. वो MSME में मेंशन है, पोल्यूशन बोर्ड में मेंशन है कि आपको STP प्लांट लगाना पड़ेगा, वाटर ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट लगाना पड़ेगा, ताकि वो जो उसका जो pH लेवल है डाउन हो जाए. बट गो टू सोनीपत, आप राई में जाकर देखिए, वहां पे मिट्टी भी लाल, काली, पीली, नीली हो गई है, उतना उसमें डाई जा चुकी है. तो अगेन इट डिपेंड्स कि हमें वी हैव टू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम आवरसेल्फ, वी हैव टू टेक ए ओथ. जो एथिक्स हैं, एथिक्स इज नॉट ओनली जो साहब कह रहे थे कि भाई प्लेनेट तो तब सेव होगा जब पहले हम अपने आप को सेव करें, अपने से स्टार्ट करें. एंड वी शुड स्टार्ट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल. हम क्या कहते हैं, ठीक है मैं अपने घर में कर दूंगा, मैं बच्चों से बात करूंगा. व्हाई टू टॉक अबाउट द चिल्ड्रन, व्हाई टॉक अबाउट द फैमिली, व्हाई टॉक अबाउट द वाइफ. व्हाट यू योरसेल्फ इज डूइंग. मैं यहाँ पे आ रहा था, अभी JNU आ रहा था, तो JNU आते हुए मैं रास्ते में कम से कम मैंने 500 बार हॉर्न दबाया. तो क्या मैंने ओथ ली कि मैं व्हेन आई वेंट टू कोरिया, मैं साउथ कोरिया गया था, मैंने पूरा कोरिया घूमा, वहां पे पूरा कोरिया घूमा, मैंने एक हॉर्न की आवाज नहीं सुनी. एंड आई वाज शॉक्ड. तो आई केप्ट ऑन वेटिंग फॉर 7 days कि कोई गाड़ी का हॉर्न तो मारो भाई. मैं टेंशन में आ गया कि दैट आई एम ऑन नो मैंस लैंड. लेकिन यहाँ तक मैं नोएडा से यहाँ तक मैं 500 बार हॉर्न खुद मार के आया. मैं गाड़ी को दौड़ा के लाया, पोल्यूशन करता लाया, टाइम पर सर्विसिंग नहीं कराएंगे. देयर आर एन नंबर ऑफ फैक्टर्स. इफ वी रियली वांट टू सेव द अर्थ, सेव द प्लेनेट, चाहे वो MSME हो. और थोड़ा सा मैं बस डिफर करूंगा साहब से कि गवर्नमेंट का ध्यान नहीं गया. गवर्नमेंट का इतना ध्यान है कि वो पोल्यूशन वाले ना वो दिन भर गाड़ियां लेकर के वो छोटी यूनिट्स में ही घूम रहे होते हैं. तो कोई भी हम सजेशन वगैरह दें, छोटी यूनिट्स तो ऐसे वो माना जाता है कि जैसे बिल्कुल वो मनी क्रिएटर्स हैं. तो they are to take care each and everything. So thank you very much. पर्ची आ गई है.
Any word before finalizing ethics के बारे में कोई बताना चाहिए, morality about this similar topic, how leadership we can integrate.
I think the difficulty when it comes to what he's saying exactly, the balance between ethics and sustainability is the issue. Because at the end of the day, if I'm a small company and I have to say discard oil, how do I discard oil? I may be doing it ethically right, meaning I am fulfilling environmental laws, I am doing everything by the book. But am I doing it sustainably? Maybe not, because if I do it sustainably, it will be more expensive. And as a small company, I won't even be able to break even or make profits. So I think the decision making this is a difficult aspect, and that's exactly why we are discussing this and debating, that it's not so easy to achieve that balance and optimum. And there are all these considerations that come into play. But as a conscious leader, if you take this in mind, that if I am adding something, how, is it possible, even in case of innovation? America, or the US for that matter, is a very consumerist society, whereas Paris had all this climate change treaty and everything, and believed in frugal innovation. So frugal innovation is something, it's like when there will be technology that's going to come up, but can it be done in a manner which is sustainable for the future? That has to be taken care of, but at the same time there are issues in Paris where infrastructure is so bad, homes are not insulated. So how much are we taking? And that's why when I said we as human are connected, we are also connected to nature, the same way we are connected to each other. So just keeping all of that in mind, and it's going to be this is going to be a work in progress, but working towards it would be great.
Shraddha, do you want to add something?
Yes, I just want to say that we must, as a conscious leader, we must be genuinely interested in others. So that the office environment, the business environment can be more empathetic, more aware, and there is an increase of social skills also. And one more thing I want to add, in order to increase that kind of awareness or that kind of consciousness in the leaders, the company can introduce a few emotional intelligence training programs also. So this enhance their skills, their ability, and the overall ability of the organization.
I would like to add to it. So basically, I believe if we talk about ethics, as ma'am rightly said, it's a strong balance that we have to create, which is quite difficult at times. So what actually can help here is knowing your values. So as a leader, I believe if we know what are our core values and what values can I provide to other people, I will be more inclined towards my value, as well as I'll be more inclined towards the ethics. So I believe self-awareness here, it plays a very important role. And I would like to add, like all other skills, self-awareness is a skill, and skill can be learned. There are a lot of ways where we can build the skill of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. So I would like to add one thing. If we are not aware about our emotions or about our thoughts, it is very difficult to control what we are thinking, control our perception, control our decisions, what we are having. So being aware can help you in that. And concluding to it, I believe knowing your values can be a very good turn here, where we can actually fulfill the ethics that are required to be followed.
This we do during the self-awareness, that value part, and I think so it's easily viewable. If you people want to do by your own, you can easily get the value chart.
Any question from the student category?
Yeah. Anyone last you before winding it up?
Please give them
anyone
a chance.
Ask a question? Any question anyone has?
Students.
I have one.
Yeah.
Here. Thank you. I have a question to Ms. Anubha Agarwal. As Dr. Khanna said earlier, that if you don't have anything nice to say to something, just don't say anything at all. Contrary to that, I understand, helping yourself to know yourself better, but sometimes I feel like moral and ethical duty comes to what if you are feeling that some individual might require some assistance to know themselves better, you can just tell them. So how can an individual, between the dilemma to not say anything bad at all, and then just informing them in an ethical moral responsibility that they feel, how does this breakout can happen in this dilemma of loop sort of thing that they
You're asking that how do we solve the dilemma of whether to say or not to say? Yeah. I don't think there is a solution to this. It is an assessment of a lot of things. Just like position, title. There are lots of things that you need to assess. The equation you have with that person. So there will be some sense of trust that you have with someone, or there is a relationship that you've built with someone. And you make that assessment weighing that relationship. So this is going to be, honestly, I mean, you're super young. This is going to be a battle throughout your life, where you will come across these crucial moments that whether should I do this or not do this, and that assessment you will be able to make at that point only. But you will have to consider a lot of factors while doing it. Some people will not do it because they are going to, in that position, risk their job. There is a relation. So I have a relationship with my mom. Will I say something to her or not? Yes, because she will understand it. And if I don't say it, I'm not being honest and transparent, neither to myself nor to her. But how do I say it to her? What moment do I choose? Do I take her out for lunch and then say it? So am I creating the right environment? Am I coming from a place where they are aware that we are saying it not to criticize, but because we care? So I think
so, Anubha, you said it about willingness. The person is ready to accept that. Coming to a, like the example I gave, coming to a professional is willingness, I need help. But when I consciously as a professional I gave the feedback, the person after 8 months have the courage to tell me what you are saying it, that's right. So I would say that willingness part is that it comes with a type. Another depends upon the personality of the person. Whether I avoid confrontation, whether I am the person who believes in like putting things under the carpet.
You cannot help someone if they don't want the help.
No,
yeah, that's also right. You can't help someone who doesn't want
वो
the help.
कहते हैं ना घोड़े को पानी के पास लेके जाया जा सकता है पर पानी नहीं पिलाया जा सकता.
You shouldn't, because you will actually hurt your head hitting it on the wall. So those choices are to be made based on the person you're with.
I would like to add one thing to it. I think Ma'am rightly said that it is very important for us to identify the calculated risk we are taking when we are communicating anything. But apart from that, I believe there are certain things that we can control and we should focus on the things that we can control. And here in our control is the communication skills we have. So being a therapist, we train a lot of communication skills. I just have a few strategies that I would like to share one thing. So as Dr. Nisha already mentioned about the sandwich strategy. So what do we do? That if let's say you're my boss and I want to share you something, I would start with something positive and encouraging, and then I will talk about the conflicting part, and then I would end it up with another thing that is positive that I like about you. Another thing, there's a DBT known as dialectical behavior therapy. So it gives a lot of modules about skill training. So another skill is give. G means gentle. So let's say if I am communicating, but I'm very gentle with you. Another is I. When I'm sharing something, I seem very interested about that topic. So it seems that I am passionate about it and I am giving my opinion, and the contradiction won't be there as much. Then V stands for validating. Validating means that I am validating your side of view, your point of view as well. I see you and I am validating what you're going through, along with empathy, that is E. So I see you, I see where you stand, what are your emotions, but I am also holding my assertiveness here, that I value myself also, and I am putting up front my values, again with the help of calculated risk management, that we understand the consequence about it. We are able to analyze that if I am talking about it, what can be the consequence of it, and we are ready for that. So working on this thing can be helpful. Knowing what is controllable and working on your communication skills, I think, can be very helpful here.
So with this, I am just winding up the session, and I think so we talked about today in this session is about if you want to be a conscious leader. So before pointing out someone, first we have to look into ourselves. सबसे पहले अपने आप को देखो, फिर दूसरों को. Second thing is we talked about empathy, and empathy में हमेशा हमें दूसरों के viewpoint, accepting multiple perspectives, where feedback plays an important role by others also, whether your employees or whether your bosses. Third thing that is, we're talking about conscious decision making also plays an important role, in which intrinsic motivation, which I said it, not only thinking about the profit part, which Anubha ji, Shraddha ji also said, and Dr. Arvind also said, we have to think beyond that. I think so, I don't know whether in IIT Kanpur has one model where they talked about, when you talked about money comes under the physical facility part, which is the lowest level. Second comes about the relationship or feelings part, and third comes about right understanding about self and others, which plays an important in mutual prosperity and mutual happiness, which is about sustainability. एक जंगल में शेर भी रहता है और जंगल में खरगोश भी रहता है, तो उन दोनों की sustainability important है. Monetary aspects are equally important. along with that, societal, where we talked about economics is important. Along with that, environment safety is important, which the sir talked about and Yogendra ji hum baat kar rahe the. So I would say all these things are important when you think of the long-term goals, along with taking the other things in mind. And integrity itself is a question. Trusting self and others. So that also plays an important role. And thank you so much for the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We all are the part and parcel of Almighty. So it is our responsibility as well as the accountability. We are accountable for maintaining our environment and serving the nation.
Yeah, that's true. It says हमारे psychology का model
Thank you
होता
to
है.
all our panelists for their valuable insights. Now I would like to invite Dr. Rashmi Chauhan to facilitate Dr. Nisha Khanna.
Ma'am, please. Thank you. Ma'am, please. Camera connect मत हो. Sir, please. Thank you. Please, sir. Thank you, sir.
It's my honor to present to you on behalf of AME and the University. Thank you for.
Please, sir. Thank you. Please, sir.